This is the Art of Network Engineering podcast. In this podcast, we'll explore tools, technologies, and talented people. We aim to bring you information that will expand your skill sets and toolbox and share the stories of fellow network engineers.
Welcome to the Art of Network Engineering. I am Tim Bertino, and I am joined by my good buddy from the South, Howdy Packet, Dan Richards. What's happening, Dan?
Howdy. Not too much. How about yourself, Tim?
Same old. At the time of this recording, Dan and I actually got to see each other a few weeks ago.
Yep.
We got to ride together this time. Instead of AJ and Dan coming to pick me up from the airport, Dan and myself went and picked up AJ, and we got to sit and talk about a lot of the world's problems, like data center segmentation, supporting old protocols. We didn't solve any of the world's problems, but we sure talked them to death.
Yeah, we complained a lot. and then on the ride over to the airport, I am from a small town. So when you throw me driving into a big city, it doesn't go well. At one point, this airport had what would you call those? Were they toll booths, I guess?
Yeah, it was like a whole bank of toll booths. Yeah.
Yeah. But there was different options, like a ticket option and card option or something like that. And I started getting closer and I'm like, Tim, what do I do? I don't know what to do here. And I was hoping that there'd be somebody at the toll booth to at least okay, this guy's an idiot. He doesn't know what he's doing. We'll have pity on him. And then as we got closer, there was nobody in the toll booth. Yeah. And I was like, oh no,
not a soul.
Panic started setting in. But luckily it was just one of those, you just pull up to it and hit the button. It spits you out a ticket kind of thing. But it was free entertainment for Tim, at least.
Yeah. It was a quick, traumatic experience, but we all made it through.
Yeah.
Well, Dan and I are also joined in this episode by Brittany Mussett. Brittany has been on the show with us a couple times now. The first was to introduce us all to what she does. She's a technical recruiter. At the time, you had been recruiting really specifically for network engineers, and we all thought that was pretty fascinating because that's obviously our background. So that was a really good conversation. And then we had you back later on with Tim McConaughey and some of us here on the show to talk about salary negotiations. This one is going to be a little bit different than both of those. It's going to be a bit of a scary topic, but Brittany has just lived through it. Brittany, why don't you introduce what we're discussing tonight?
Yes. Hello. Thank you for having me again. I always enjoy coming to chat with you guys. And yeah, since the last two times I've been on, I feel like I've aged 27 recruitment years through that. I'm already at two different companies. So that's kind of our topic today, navigating layoffs, right? So after my first 5 years at my first company I was at out of college, I was introduced to the FANGs of the world, and I got to go join Amazon Web Services, and unfortunately was affected by their first mass layoffs in January of this year, 2023. 10,000 people laid off, talent acquisition team being a big part of that first round. And yeah, so luckily I was not unemployed for long. I'm at a new company now called LaSalle Networks. It's similar to where I was at before. I'm external recruiting again. So hopefully we can start working more networking roles. I've been seeing a lot more on the infrastructure side as well and more clients versus being internal. But I was excited to come talk about how, I did navigate that layoff situation, what I did, steps, anything I would go through. But yeah, it was an interesting time. So thanks for having me and letting me talk about it.
Yeah. Now, one thing that you said that kind of piqued my interest a little bit off the bat there is you said that the talent acquisition department was one of the big ones to be laid off first. Mm-hmm. So how would that work if they had to rehire? Would they have to contract, or what would that process be?
So I know, my team, for example, that I was on, the whole team was not eliminated. I know, okay. I'm not sure of any talent orgs that were completely eliminated, right? There was so many recruitment teams there. The way mine came down to was tenure. I had only been there right at that 11 to 12 months. I was one of the newest on my team. So there's still recruiters there. I've seen people from former colleagues posting on LinkedIn that they are hiring again and that. So from that perspective, from Amazon's, they didn't completely wipe out everyone. So there's still an ability to hire.
Yeah. Well, so that's a good point, though, that it was your tenure. So whether you were a good or a bad egg, it didn't really matter. It was just because you were the newest person in there.
Yeah, exactly. And one of my managers actually left me a referral and recommendation, that I had one of the highest productions of my org, not even on my team. So it ultimately it didn't come down to that.
Yeah. That kind of sucks.
It does. Yeah, for lack of better words, that's what I said.
So before we get too deep into what you had to go through during the layoff process, let's talk about getting into AWS. Kind of what drew you toward AWS to begin with, and what was the onboarding process like? Was it something completely new to you that you've ever experienced before? What was it like?
Yeah. So I wasn't looking at all for a new position, right? The person who ended up becoming my manager had recruited me, and they weren't going to be my manager. It was interesting. 2 weeks into me, I'll go back to onboarding, but 2 weeks into me starting at Amazon, my manager had left, had put in their notice. They were moving on to become a director of talent acquisition at another big company. And so the person who actually reached out to me on LinkedIn is like, hey, I think you'd be a good fit for Amazon. You should come interview with my team. Ended up becoming my manager 2 weeks later after I came. So that was an interesting, but he was one of the best managers I've ever had. I loved him. So that was a great unexpected change that happened. Right. But it was onboarding was very smooth, right? It was all remotely. Everything was virtual. It was very step by step. I think it was laid out very clearly. I've also, being a recruiter, I kind of knew the questions to ask for onboarding, what to expect. Am I going to get a laptop, and all the different steps? I think I have that unique advantage too after extending, offers and seeing people go through onboarding. And so that was awesome. You hear people talk about how working at, Google, Meta, wherever, Microsoft, Facebook, or Amazon, they have their own cultures of their own, and people can love it or hate it. It can take certain people to thrive in it. I love the self-pace of my onboarding, everything there, right? It was very it's your oyster. Here's your resources. Do what you can with what you have. And that's kind of what I found with everything there throughout the year I was there, right? Onboarding to the job, to even towards the end, whenever it was we're in a hiring pause, what are we supposed to do? So yeah, does that answer that?
Yeah, for sure. And then once you were in the role and comfortable going to acquire talent, what was that like? Can you kind of walk us through how did you do a lot of reaching out to potential recruits? Were you doing active recruiting, or were they really mostly coming to you? What was that like?
Yeah. And so it's interesting for sure. So one thing you asked, how did I go about getting the job as well? Once I realized I was getting interview requests, I did prep for 2 weeks on this interview, right? Amazon had their 16 leadership principles, and you get questioned over them, very scenario based. And I didn't know anything about the STAR format. Are y'all familiar with that? How to answer questions in interviews? Yeah, it's called. No. It stands for situation, task, action, result. And that's how you'll structure your answers. It helped me so much because I ramble. It's okay, get to the point, right? And it'll help you the situation. Okay, I need to do a podcast, right? So I was tasked with joining these guys today to do it. The action was we talked for 2 hours, and the results were we put out a podcast, right? And then hopefully I could quantify that more, put some data, and make sense for the role. But that was one thing, even before I got the job, Amazon literally has so much interview prep out there. they have answers everywhere. They have how to like what to expect, some leadership principle questions they may ask. Yeah, like it's everywhere. So I prepped, I wrote out my examples, and so that I literally went through the process, right? And so I get the job, and then I'm recruiting there. I know the interview process like the back of my hand. I know how to prep these candidates because I had just prepped for it, for like 2 weeks myself. And now I have an internal perspective to what they're going to ask on these candidates specifically. So that's how I would help. I would prep the heck out of my candidates, right? Like I would say, there's 16 leadership principles. You're not going to be asked over all 16 of them. They may focus on these. I don't know the exact questions, but prepare around those, right? And so with that, you can imagine I would see so many applicants for internal roles at Amazon versus if I, at other companies, smaller, right? For the applicants I received, I'm trying to think how to word this right. I would receive really good applicants, but not for that job, not for that role. And I would look at that resume and say, okay, they're not right here, but I'd still like to talk to them because I think I can work with them here. And that was one thing I saw a lot of success in at AWS because they're so large, right? So if I was on the security team, the foundational security team. If I would see someone that looked like a fantastic like infrastructure program manager, right? Like I would try to make those dots and be like, okay, maybe they can go to this team. So it would be a mix of, for my roles, I found I did have to actively go recruit and source and find those people because they'd be very specific type of roles when you figure out what that team is doing. But I've never seen as many good applicants just at my hands like that.
Okay.
So it
sounds like you had a fair amount of autonomy too, that if you had a candidate, like you said, that wasn't maybe the best fit for the role you were trying to fill, but you knew of other places that they could be a good fit. It sounds like you had the ability to kind of make that judgment call. That's pretty cool.
Exactly. Yeah, it helps. Their systems are huge, right? Like I'm very good at using our applicant tracking systems and making sure like a candidate hasn't already interviewed at Amazon a million times before I start like going down that, or they're not already in contact with 10 different recruiters. So as always, like I'll say this a million times, like recruitment is so different for every person. Like it's even at the same company, right? You're not going to get the same experience with me at the same company that you do someone else. So it just kind of depends on who you get to work with. And like, luckily what I learned from Amazon too, just seeing all those good applicants and seeing how even they would get passed on just because they didn't tick those boxes for other people's roles, right? That helped me in my search too, because I was thinking my resume might not get looked at. Who knows? Like, how am I going to stand out?
Yeah. You got a lot of data to kind of look through to see what's hitting and what's not hitting, right?
Right. Yeah, for sure. But I enjoyed my time there. It was great. I learned a lot for sure. I think I would do it all over again, even knowing, I would have gotten laid off. I remember thinking, like, when I did leave my first company, okay, now I can talk to people more about actually putting in a notice, how to handle those nerves a little bit. Like, I've been here for 5 years, I'm leaving my first job finally. And now it's like, okay, silver lining, I can actually talk to people more about what to do. And you're like, oh, okay. So well, I'm out of a job now.
Right. But you're more relatable to it now because you had to put your notice in, kind of thing. Yeah.
Definitely.
So not to bring up any bad wounds or anything, but can you take us through the day that you found out you were no longer going to be at AWS?
Yeah. It was interesting. So the first in January, there was actually a leak that there was going to be internal layoffs before that first round. So we knew everyone in Amazon knew 2 weeks before January 18th that there was going to be layoffs. So that kind of sucked. Actually, yeah. I don't know what's worse. I've asked people this, like, would you rather just wake up and not know, or like still not know, but doomsday's coming maybe?
Yeah.
But did you kind of know that you would probably be one of the ones?
Yeah. So they even
Okay.
narrowed it down even more closer to that, to where it targeted the groups. Now my org was huge. I think it was like, God, I want to say 20,000 people anyways, right? So it maybe couldn't have been me. I knew our group was highly successful, but I thought so. I'm a Debbie Downer for the most part. So yeah. So that night I didn't sleep, whatever. And then the day comes and it's like 9 o'clock and I'm just sitting here and I'm like, come on, like, let me know already.
Yeah.
9, 10 o'clock. And my boyfriend, he was home that day and I was like, I can't. I need to go do something. And so we go to Goodwill and I'm in there shopping, right? And I think we were in there for 5 minutes and then my manager calls me and I'm like, crap.
No.
One of those no news is good news situations. Yeah, so I was like, I answered the phone and he was like, hey. And I was like, hey, I had to step away from my computer. He's like, I get it. And he's like, well, and I was like, did I get an email? He's like, yeah.
Oh no.
Yep. And he said he only found out 2 minutes before I did. They didn't even know. Yeah, the managers had gotten a couple emails, like just who would be affected. Yeah, and I was in Goodwill. I ended up going to the bathroom because I had started crying a little bit. Like, it does catch you off guard,
no.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like,
I'm sure.
yeah, and I'm one of those, like, I want things to be on my terms. I wasn't ready.
Right.
Right? So it was a mess there. Like, that first day, actually, it was Wednesday. I only know this because it's at Dave & Buster's. Here's a plug. They have half price games on Wednesday. So me and my boyfriend, I was like, I just want to go throw some balls or something. So we went to Dave & Buster's as well. And I think we had some Mexican food, but it was a blur of a day. I was sad. I was definitely sad, but I don't let myself wallow too long. I gave myself like 2 or 3 days, right? Like, I don't think until that next Monday, because it was a Wednesday. Yeah. I took those days until the weekend. And then I was like, okay, like, man up, or, woman up. It's life happens that I'm not unique, right? Like, I started seeing people, 18 years, 20 years at Google, wherever. And like, I'm like, okay, you're going to be okay, So yeah, I wallowed. I was sad. Of course, like, it sucks, like, for lack of better words again, but yeah, that was the day. Goodwill, Dave & Buster's, Mexican food.
Good old Goodwill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just got to go thrifting.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we didn't even get anything.
You said that there were rumors a couple weeks before, and there was a thought that your team might have been affected. Did you happen to start thinking or doing any prep of what your next steps were? Or were you just kind of hoping for the best?
Yeah, I was completely hoping for the best.
Okay.
And looking back, like, that maybe it ended up being okay because I had a ton of support, like, for updating your resume and things like that. I wish I would have gotten a little bit more of a heads up on that, because or like a heads up on that, because it makes it a little bit harder to update it when you're sad and you're not there, right? It's like, how to, like, I want to put what I've done before it hurts, but yeah. And that's kind of one advice too I'd give. Like, you'll see people say all the time, like, reach out to me, let me update your resume, or I'll give you pointers or whatever. Like, I take advantage of that. People actually will. I ended up sending my resume around, like so many different times to different people at Amazon, right? Like, they would just look at it, give me pointers, and I'd edit, plug and play, whatever. And that helped me. Like, it takes off so much pressure when people will help you, and they will, I find.
Yeah. That's interesting. So you're saying the people at some of your coworkers at Amazon were willing to kind of help you with your resume, even like after you were laid off, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
One thing too, I tried. I was lucky enough to at least have the heads up, right? So I did save a lot of my stuff and, like, try to just any documents or things I thought I would need. And luckily, you still have access to your computer for a while, right?
Okay.
But yeah, there was some things I didn't get either, like more data specific things. Like, as a recruiter, that's really important as far as, like, how many resumes do I submit or how many placements. And so those were some things I didn't have, and my manager and colleagues, they were able to help me quite a bit with that as well. Those are a few like regrets I have. I think I was hoping for the best, and it's like you kind of expect the worst. Just always expect the worst in a way.
Yeah. I think that's a Boy Scout lesson.
You got to maintain access, you said, to your computer and resources. Did they give you any immediate next steps? Did you have a direct line to HR to figure out what was next? What if you would be compensated in any way?
Yeah.
It just seems like a whirlwind. I can't fathom going through that and what's going through your head and what do you do next? And hopefully they had some resources set up to help you. So what was that like?
Yeah, they did. And I think that's obviously a benefit of working at somewhere like an Amazon or an AWS, right? Is those resources. But it was a little delayed too. And I think that's something I would definitely recommend. Like if you are laid off, take a minute to fully understand the situation, because one, like I was coming from my first ever job of 5 years where it was fully commission based, well, I had base and commission, but that's it. And then I moved to having like a stock option, a sign-on bonus, RSU, a 401k, so many different parts of it. And I all of a sudden was like, holy cow, where's all my money at now? Like, HSA, I'm just thinking of all these things. And so I don't think I got my severance letter with the details on it like 8 or 9 days after I found out.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, like, and as someone like, I'm younger in my career and I'm like, I want to know where's my money at, what's going to happen and all of this. Like, so that was scary for sure. That definitely caused me to like start looking immediately, right? I didn't understand how good the severance package was. It was good as far as like, you were paid, you got to keep your normal pay for 60 days, right? So I was laid off January 18th. I would get paid as normal until March 21st. So unless I accepted a new position before March 21st, then everything would be fine. And then your severance would come down to then your tenure. So on March 21st, that was whenever I would get my severance. Does that make sense?
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So it took me a minute to understand this. And then when I did, I was able to breathe for a minute because I was like, okay, so you're telling me I have until March 21st? Like that first week, I was just like, or whenever I started looking aggressively, I was just interviewing, like trying to I thought I would be not being paid like super soon.
Yeah.
So it like, try to understand your situation, right? Like it kind of depends. And I knew coming from a company like that, I was more than likely going to take a pay cut, right? So it made sense for me, even interviewing, telling companies, I'll start March 22nd, which is exactly what ended up happening with my timeline. I got paid as normal. Okay. I was still getting my severance and all of that. And I started, March 22nd. And that's perfect scenario. Yes. I mean, in an ideal world, I wasn't laid off, but that was how I wanted to do. It took me a minute to really understand that severance though. And with Amazon, they had an internal even like career services to where they helped edit your resume. So I did use that. I still recommend using like personal colleagues or, teammates and things, but any service, right? Anything helps. But yeah, we had access to like our internal HR and benefits and everything. So I felt like they looked out for us for that. I felt informed. It just getting the severance details like 9 days later was a little worrisome.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Now, another thing too, you're talking about benefits and whatnot. How did like insurance work? Was it like a normal job change type situation, or how did that flow?
Yeah. So for me, it was because I was able to start a new position right after my date of employment ended. So I did get COBRA information sent to me. I did not have to enroll in that, but the benefits, they would have ended the month of March, the end of the month you're employed. So
okay, so you did get to keep your health insurance benefits until that March date.
The severance like kicked in.
Yeah, and for all
I
intents
gotcha.
and purposes, and I it's so confusing. I know people will be like, I don't know when my last day of employment is, right? But like my W-2 will say March 22nd, or
Really?
21st. Yeah, because I was paid until then, normal hours.
Yeah.
Basically,
Okay.
yeah, it's I don't know all the rules behind it in laws. This would be a whole nother specialized person, but there's a reason why big companies do it like that. Give you those 2 months. I'm not sure
Okay.
exactly why, but there's laws and reasons why. So
Okay.
if I have no idea.
Yeah, no, it all sounds very scary to me. So
Yeah, but it is what it is. They give you they say you can look for an internal transfer as well. For other skill sets, it's very possible. For recruitment, it wasn't so much because we weren't hiring at the moment. Like, I could have maybe looked at Amazon's good on like internal transfers or progression or whatever. So I could have looked at maybe going a program manager route or something like that. But
Mhm.
I wanted to keep recruiting. So
I
I've
gotcha.
looked out. But yeah, they definitely take care of you as far as resources and internal benefits.
I gotcha. Now, just going back on the severance thing again. So you said you were paid to like normal till, would you say March 20 what
21st, something like that.
21st?
Hmm.
But then you said then you got a severance package, right?
Yep.
So
Yeah.
like not number amount, but like how many months of a severance like pay would that have been on your normal pay scale?
I think less than one.
Less than one. Okay.
Yeah, I wasn't there very long. That was all. The severance was off of tenure.
Okay.
Yep,
Oh,
and
okay.
then like paid out PTO and PTO and then tenure. So I wasn't there very long.
I got you.
Yeah.
Now, how long were you actually there for? You might have said that earlier, but I missed it.
11 months. Yeah,
11
right
months,
at 11
okay.
months.
Gotcha.
Right at that year-ish.
Well, I'm glad you highlighted like some of the different benefits and other things that you had to think about, because I wouldn't have thought about some of those things day one, but I think after kind of the shock wore off, you start
Mhm.
thinking about, okay, I had a retirement, I had an HSA, I had whatever else that are all like different accounts, right? So
Yeah.
Mhm.
how difficult was a process was that to get those transferred or to figure out how to access that, and how long did it take?
We will let you know.
Oh,
shit.
TBD.
So
Yeah.
it's not been that long. It's May 18th. And I wasn't eligible for transfer until like a couple weeks ago with my new company. So it's just,
Okay.
yeah, but it doesn't seem like it's that hard. Everything's been pretty simple. I'm able to use my HSA. That money is mine, right? I'm able to use my card for that, like my prescriptions. So yeah, I'll keep you posted on that. But everything is still like I haven't been locked out of anything or anything of that regards. And so I was going through Fidelity too, and I found at Amazon they have like their own groups at these different service providers they'll use, right? And so there's been good contacts through that, like how to transfer your money and how to have a hold of it. So I think it should be okay.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, I can't answer more on that.
No, it's fine.
Yeah.
So let's shift a little bit to the process of finding the next role.
Mhm.
How did that work for you? Did you reach out to any recruiters? Were you just, because you have the experience of being the recruiter for as long as you have, did you just go after different job boards on your own?
Yeah. So this was interesting to me, the whole search actually. I found LinkedIn was actually my favorite for finding job postings.
Okay.
I could not stand Indeed. I could not stand it looking at jobs there for some reason. And so at first I would try to use a couple of other job boards, right? Like I would just look around and search and find, and then I got tired of it. So I went to LinkedIn. And then I find out that I didn't know this, okay? I've never used the LinkedIn job postings, right, as a recruiter. So you know how you can easily apply for jobs?
Yeah.
Yeah. I've never used that as when I'm hiring. So I didn't know that recruiters actually, they have to go in. That's a whole separate thing of applicants to look at versus like their internal system for the most part. There may be a few systems that integrate to where you can look at them all in one list. But one of my colleagues who's a recruiter at another big company, he mentioned like, no, like you have to go look at them separately. He said sometimes he forgets or people will forget that they have it there. There can be like 200 applicants there. So if you also easily apply on LinkedIn, I found also go apply on the company website directly too. And like it's not a double application on their system. That's not a bad thing. You can do that. It helps your chances.
Okay.
And so I found I wasn't getting any responses when I was just doing the easily apply, obviously, right? But one thing I found was funny was I remember when I used to ask people like, well, where are you interviewing at or whatever? They're like, I don't know. I can't remember. There's so many. I'm like, yeah, right. Like, how do you not remember like where you've applied? Oh my gosh. Okay. Like it is so possible. I realized very quickly I needed to stay organized. Like that's the biggest thing. I made an Excel spreadsheet and I still have it because it could come in handy for someone someday, who knows, and I was looking at it before here, and I ended up getting to 105 applications total. But I quickly was like, I don't know where I've sent my resume at anymore. Like,
Oh man.
definitely stay organized. That helps. And then what I found my biggest success was not through recruiters, at all. I had 9 interviews, 105 applications, 9 interviews. No recruiter initiated any of those 9 interviews, right? And yeah, none through talent. And so
now hold on a second. You're kind of talking bad on your people here.
Trust me, I know. It's tough out there, and recruiters, they'll say it too. That right. That we're not the best out there. We don't have the best reputation. That's why I say it comes down to the individual, who's going to give a damn, right? Who's going to look at your resume for more than 1 second for the keywords. And so this is what I found my success is. I knew I want to be a technical recruiter. I know the people and the roles I want to fill. And so I found if I would message like a network security engineering manager and be like, hey, I saw a recruiting role at your company. I feel I'd love to fill teams like yours. Can you help me expedite my application? That helped me so much more than internal stuff, or than internal talent. Yeah. One thing I wanted to mention too, because it's one of my biggest pet peeves as a recruiter, when I receive messages and they just say, "I need a job. Can you help me?" Like
no details, no nothing.
No. Or at Amazon. Hey Brittany, can you get me a job at Amazon? Hey Brittany, I'm interested in Amazon. Aren't we all? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so this is when staying organized also helped. One of my favorite things as a recruiter is when someone will message me and say, "Hi Brittany, I don't know if you can help. I applied for this job, sends link or job ID number on this date," or whatever. Send as much information as you can. Can you help? Whatever. Again, it comes down to the person, if they'll actually look into it and give a damn. But I also had multiple placements at Amazon off of just looking at the person's what they applied for and be like, yeah, you are a good fit for that. Let me help you. Like, let's move it along. So when I would do that, I would just send the exact job application. Like, you're helping them do the work too, right? Like, because you're asking them to go put in a word for you internally and do something. Like, do some of the legwork for them. Give them all the information, right? Like, anything. And so I would even keep track of that in my my Excel sheet, right? Like, I would contact more than one person at a company. Like, if I was targeting big companies or whatever, and I would even try to mention that, like, oh, hey, I've reached out to so and so or whatnot. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I think that's pretty smart. What you did there of like going, like you said, with the security manager and saying, "Hey, I see your company's hiring for this a recruiter in this position," that kind of thing. I think that's a really great way to attack that.
For sure. And at the time, like, recruiting too, very competitive, right? Like there's a lot of
Yeah.
talent acquisition, recruitment being laid off. So that was one thing. Like I've been good. You guys, everyone has helped me build my network and brand over the years. So of course I
Mhm.
use my LinkedIn. Like I went kind of viral. I was not expecting that. Like,
Uh-oh.
yeah, I know. It was insane. Yeah, and I was just trying something different. The first day when I got laid off, I made a post, your typical, oh,
Uh-huh.
I was laid off today. And that got some good traction, but then so my birthday's February 9th. So that was only a couple weeks after the layoffs, and I had barely gotten any responses then, right?
Mm.
And so I posted, I was like, I'm gonna try something different. Tomorrow's my birthday. And I just put like 3 stats. I was like, I've placed this many people, and then I'd also like recommendations or referrals for my birthday, whatever. And it got, I think it's at like 4,000 likes or something. I mean, that's
Oh,
not
wow.
viral, but it's viral for me,
Yeah.
But yeah, it still gets likes today, 3 months later. And
Everybody loves a good gimmick.
Yeah.
yeah. And I had people hate on me too, but it was funny. Like,
Oh, really?
that's what makes a good post, I guess. They're
Yeah.
like, "How dare you?" That's kind of cocky. And I was like, "Facts are facts, man. Help me
Yeah.
find a job."
It's like, I got to get a job.
Yeah. And yeah, so that helped. And I actually had people reach out and be like, "Hey, I saw your post." Like,
Yeah.
and they would send me leads. And I realized how much I loved recruitment too, like even throughout the layoff situation, and how like so many people that I've placed or even just gotten interviews throughout my like this 7 years now, like they were sending
Mhm.
me leads, and my old contractors that I used to work with, they were like sending me job, applications and internal referrals. So that was really like heartwarming in a way. It kind of made me like look at recruitment again, like, oh, okay, like, we all can help. Like it's not that bad out here.
105 applications. What was the span of time between leaving
Oh.
AWS and landing the new job?
Yeah, so I accepted my new role March 7th. So yeah, I had 3 weeks of breathing time there.
Mm.
From the 7th to the 21st. So there was I was hunkered down there, like applying every day.
Well, that was going to be my next question. So would your advice be for somebody who's trying to find the new role after being laid off? Did you feel like you treated it like a job? Did you structure your day? How did that whole process work?
Yes, absolutely. Like it would have drove me crazy not to feel like I had any type of purpose, right? Like I did play a little bit more golf because it was prime golfing weather in Texas at the time. But no, I made a point, like I wanted to have at least one recruitment type phone call a day, like talk to someone about like recruitment. I don't care if it's an interview, if it's just a professional type networking, just do something. That was really my goal. Like at least do that once a day. I even spoke with one of AJ's cousins, I believe, or something, just to help. He was like, I don't know if you want to chat with them about something. And I was like, yes, like just help me feel useful, please. But yeah, I would structure it like a day. I would have a goal of how many applications I'd want to do in a day, or even like if it wasn't applications, it would be like, okay, I want to do this many reach outs to this company that I've already applied at for this role. So yeah, I would have shorter work days, but I would structure it like a work day. I would try to.
Yeah.
For the most part.
You're leaving at 2:00 to go play some golf, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. That 10 to 2 day.
Yeah.
No.
And you said you kept a spreadsheet too. So when you applied for something, did you have like reminders set up? Did you have a specific amount of time in between when you applied for something to when you would try to follow up?
I didn't really no, not really. My goal was to follow up with at least one person for everything. So no, I didn't have like a timeline. That probably would have been a good thing, because I feel maybe I missed out on a couple. Like I know how quick things were filled too, but I don't feel like I missed out at all. But
Tim over here is like, did you create a Kanban board and like have, your different buckets for?
I'm sweating here just thinking about this.
I don't even have.
You have such good questions, man. I didn't even think about that. That's such a good question.
Well, I think you have to like treat it like a job if you're.
Oh yeah.
If you're really serious about it and wanting to take that next step. So, you don't have to answer this if you don't want to, but did you ever get to the point of going to file for unemployment, going through the government to work through to see what different programs are available? Did it get that far?
It got to where I was Googling it and on the websites, right?
Okay.
Doing some research on it.
Yeah. I will say with the company I'm at, LaSalle, they moved very quickly too, and it's something I actually enjoyed. I'm a big process person, right? Like I like to do things the right way and like in line. And one thing that drove me crazy throughout my interview experience and looking was no one seemed to have processes anymore, right? Like it's like what are we doing? Is it an interview, first stage, second stage? Are we just having informal conversations? Are you hiring or not? I'm looking for a job. Yeah. And especially coming from somewhere like Amazon where everything is so structured and like, very, very process. I wasn't finding that, and I just really like that about LaSalle. Like they were following up with like interview prep and giving debriefs, and like it was very structured. And then I also love my boss as well. He's great. But they moved within 1 week from it. That was interesting too. LaSalle's pretty large. They have a big internal recruitment team too. So I understand I think I actually applied for a job that they were recruiting for a client, not even for an internal role. So I'll give them the pass here on why maybe my resume got missed. But that's how I got this job. Is I had messaged my boss, who's the director of network of our network services unit. And I was like, hey, I applied for a job 2 weeks ago at LaSalle. Could you help me expedite my application? Interviewed me the next day, and I had an offer within a week.
Wow.
So nice. Yeah, maybe on your point, Tim, had I made that board and messaged him 2 weeks before, I could have been golfing a lot quicker.
Wow.
Yeah.
Tim, I need you to make a template, an Asana board template for job hunting.
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, that's kind of the main things I would say. Like stay organized for sure. That helps. Being honest throughout my job search too with people I was interviewing with, that helped a lot. Even the other day I was talking to someone, they had just been laid off, and they're talking about, money, and they're like, what's the best way to go about it? And I was like, to be honest, right? Like, when you're talking to people, like I told people what I've made, this is what I've made, but this is literally what I need to keep my lights on, to pay my bills, to live. And that they won't be shocked then if you don't accept an offer or something at the end of it, right? It's like, just honesty goes so far. It's when you start getting in those things where you tell people like one thing and then you do another thing. It happens everywhere. So
let me ask this too. This might be changing gears here, but like in your interview processes, did you was the question asked like, hey, why were you laid off or anything like that? Like or is it kind of known if you had the layoff from AWS that it wasn't necessarily performance based, it was more tenure based, or like how does that normally go in an interview?
So I wasn't asked at all, not once. And from my perspective, when I talk to candidates that are laid off, you kind of don't really, it doesn't really matter, to be honest. Like, expect 10,000 people. Can it really come down to anything one person did if 10,000 people are laid off at once? Right. Like, what are you going to do? As long as it's the same basics, references, like, what did you do there? Can you explain what you've done? And that even before I was laid off, I mean, it's crazy to me now that, like, even being young, I can say I've seen like the industry change, right? But we haven't really seen this many massive layoffs like this. But I would never even ask people like, why were you, like, I would ask why were there layoffs and try to get to the bottom of it. And you can suss things out and get references and find out. But these days, with especially the big companies doing massive layoffs, like I'm not finding people are asking. I wasn't.
So like one question I've asked in interviews is like, is there a particular reason why you're leaving where you're at? Is there something that they're not offering that you're looking for? And you kind of fill out that question, right? Like leave it open-ended in a sense. And so I wasn't sure if like, if you were asked that question or something like that, and your answer would be because we went through a massive layoff or,
Yeah, that was pretty much my answer, straightforward. And I did use LinkedIn as my main avenue. So I had done those 2 posts about being laid off. So that was there too. But yeah, and it was just everywhere at the time. Like you couldn't really go on LinkedIn without seeing AWS layoff, layoff, right?
So it probably wasn't that big of a shock to a recruitment team or anything like that anyways. No. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I see where you're coming from, Dan. In like, how do you advertise that without advertising it? Like if you were at a company for a handful of months and all of a sudden you're looking for another job, you were laid off, but the hiring company may not know that. They may question why were you only there a handful of months? Now, like you said, Brittany, in the situation you were coming out of, it was probably a pretty good assumption. Right. As to why that happened. But if it was a smaller company that was maybe less well known, I can see that being somewhat awkward. Or something. Yeah.
And of course, like what you did in your time there and how well you can interview and explain that is key. It helps, right?
Gotcha. So completely hypothetical question. You have somebody, it's hypothetical. No hidden meaning behind this. So let's say you have, you're talking with somebody that was laid off. They've got, 3 interviews with 3 different companies that they feel like they're getting a ways with. They get an offer from one. They feel that it would be enough to get them by, but they aren't feeling really passionate about the company. They think there may be an offer coming at some point. They want to kind of feel it out from one of the other companies they applied to. What would be your advice? Do they try to pump the brakes, install? Is it okay to take the offer? And if one of the other ones comes up that is a better offer after you've already started at the other company, do you feel bad if you shift to the other one? What would be your advice?
Whew, couple parts there.
Are they basically he's asking, do you be a jerk or not?
Yes, that is exactly it. Thank you, Dan.
Is it
Dan understands me.
Is it a contract role? Direct hire? See.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah,
good point. I'm thinking we'll just make it easy. Just a direct hire role. No contract. No, you have to be here X amount of time. Whatever. Just a direct hire role.
Yeah. It's not great. I wouldn't I wouldn't advise it. And that's just one of those, like, don't say you're going to do something you're not going to do, right? Yeah. You accepted a full-time role. Most of the time you should know like what you've signed up for, right? And yet I know bait and switches in roles can happen, right? Like you sign up and this is not what I signed up for. Sure, go ahead and leave that if this is not it, right? Like that's not I'm doing operations and I'm not an operations person, whatever, right? The money motivator being the key thing, like, yes, that is a big thing for some people, but there's always got to be something else that's like a true motivator, right? Like,
so in that scenario that Tim gave, though, would you suggest like he said, pumping the brakes, maybe just try to stall for a little bit, or should you bite on it even though you might not be as passionate about that company? Like what are there tactics there that can be done tastefully?
My biggest fear would be, okay, I'm down to the end of the rope. I really need a role soon.
Yeah.
I say, okay, I'm not getting any feedback from these other 2 companies that I think would be decent roles. This one's giving me an offer. I accept. 2 days later, the other one comes back and says, hey, we'd like to offer you this role. And it's you're more passionate about the role, it's better paying. Like, what do you do?
Yeah. And okay, sorry, I understand fully now. I think that's definitely like when it comes down to the very beginning, you be honest with what you're looking for, right?
Mhm.
So if you told them why in that scenario, if at the very beginning you told company A that, this is what you're looking for, but you accept an offer and they know that it's maybe at the lower end or whatever, or something like that. And then 2 days later, they're not going to be surprised that you accepted an offer that was, way above the range they gave, because you told them this is what you've
Okay.
made, this is what you're making.
Okay.
What the thing is and it's happened to me in the past too. Like a candidate will tell me, yeah, I'll 50 an hour is good, but then they'll just decline it or something, right? If an offer comes and they're like, no, I'm not taking that. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, and had I known, like, I've gotten better at this part. I'm, at this part with recruiting, but, had I known that you wouldn't actually accept that, I would have pushed for more, or I would never have submitted you or whatever. It's, I'll never be mad at someone for doing what they said they were going to do or what they'd want.
I gotcha. Yeah.
So with that case, I would say you're okay. If you don't have anything in your hand, but you were honest from the get-go, I don't see that you would have any bad references, even if you accepted it, as long as you would know, like, does that make sense?
No,
as long
it does.
as you're just not like being slimy.
Yeah. Being upfront as possible. Yeah, that makes sense. So we've got an interesting question in the chat. With your experience as a recruiter, do recruiters really actually look at applicants' blog posts or YouTube videos or other content creation? Do they have time for that?
Yeah, I do. I definitely do. One of my things, I have it on my calendar every week, social media sourcing, to where I'll just go like Discord,
cool.
Twitter, Reddit. Yeah, just to try to spend more time there, right? So yeah, I definitely. When I was at, what is it? Is it GitHub? Yeah, GitHub, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that where they do more like software type projects?
Yes.
Yeah, cool. So I would go on there and look at their, when I was at AWS too. But I read a lot of blog posts. I look at people's websites a lot too. Yeah, I think recruiters definitely do.
No, that's cool. So let's shift a little bit now into your current role. We know the role before Amazon, you were, I don't know if it was exclusively, but you were at least really heavily, like, you were recruiting network engineers. What kind of role is this now? Are you across the board, across the IT stack? Are you focusing on specific types of roles?
Yeah, so it'll be across IT, but predominantly network infrastructure, cybersecurity. I always love PMO, so project management, product, anything in that. I do enjoy that too, but always on the technical side, right? One thing with LaSalle is they're huge in Chicago, so a lot of things I'm finding, which is good, I'm enjoying. They're more for entry level too, but they are hybrid. So that's kind of a struggle at the minute. So anyone in Chicago, let me know, hit me up. We got a lot of roles there, but we also have an office in Dallas. So that's good. I'm hoping Texas builds out quite a bit with that, because Dallas is a huge tech market as well.
Mm-hmm, definitely.
But yeah, we see a lot of remote roles hybrid to Chicago. So hopefully we can grow that. I've seen a lot of data lately. A lot of like Power BI type roles has been interesting.
Okay. Yeah.
But network security, yeah, I'll still be working within networking. Hopefully we can find some more roles nationwide for everyone.
Here you go.
Yeah. So from your role before Amazon to where you're at with LaSalle now, are you seeing a dramatic decrease in 100% remote jobs? Has it stayed about the same? What's the percentage look like?
I think people are getting strict again with like returning to office. It was, so around COVID time when everything went fully remote, I think up until this year, right, is whenever people have started returning back to office. Past couple months, I know even Amazon did, for example, they did a return to office, but I have found things are back to hybrid, but also still very flexible. But I'm just not seeing the commitment to 100% remote anymore.
Yeah, that's kind of how our company did, was hybrid, kind of like a work from home 3 days, come in the office 2 days, kind of pick your days that you want to come in. Not like a super set schedule or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I was going to ask. So the roles that you're seeing that are advertised as hybrid, is it pretty set in stone of you will be here these days, or do you see that it's more negotiable between the hiring manager and the recruit?
Yeah, definitely negotiable, right?
Okay.
And even Chicago, for example, people live everywhere, and it can be, yeah, if someone lives, 2 hours train right away versus someone that lives in the city, they may look at things differently, or have more flexi hours to beat traffic or whatnot. Yeah, I find that it always takes both parties to be flexible to make something happen, right? Give and take from both.
So looking back at the experience you had earlier this year, is there anything that you would have done differently, or that you would tell yourself today back then that you would handle any differently than you did?
Yeah, way back then.
Way back then. Does it feel okay? That's another question. Does it feel like it was a long time ago, or is it still pretty fresh?
It feels like it was a long time ago already. Like I don't know, so many processes. It's insane. I blink and I just learned I just remembered my password for login there, and now I have a new email address. Like,
Nice.
Yeah, it's been a lot of change, but I have enjoyed it though. I do feel like it's made me so much more confident, comfortable, like embrace change, and like nothing will kill you, honestly. Well, some things will, but but anything in like recruitment or like work, it's not going to kill you, right? And also, I've been in situations where I haven't had work-life balance. I've been in situations where I've absolutely loved my job now, where I've absolutely not loved my manager, to where I've absolutely loved my manager. And it's just kind of helped me. I've learned more about myself. So if anything, I would even go back and be pickier about jobs I did apply for. Don't just apply for everything, right? And then maybe at the beginning, I think I was a little, like, the first week I did like applied, and just hurry up in like frantic mode. Take a minute, understand the situation, right? Like, don't think it's doomsday, even though it can seem like it is, right?
Yeah. I think like what you were getting at though, it's similar to dating, right? Like after you've dated several people and whatnot, you're more, what you want, what you don't want, right? What you like, what you don't like, traits that get on your nerves and traits that you enjoy being around, that kind of thing. That makes sense. That all makes sense.
It's kind of helped me learn too, like, being more patient in work. Like, at first I thought, this is just so annoying about this one company or this one person. It's like, gosh, okay, every corporate or environment kind of has the same tendencies, don't they?
Yeah. It's like, which red flags do you know are more crucial to you?
You know what to look for.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I'm happy with where I did land. Like, I felt really good throughout the interview process with how they handled everything, and just the resources they have too. LaSalle, they are great, to get my little plug in there. So
yeah, we do
contract and direct hire too. So happy to help.
We'll have to put something in the show notes about that.
Oh, yeah, for sure. So let's start kind of recapping some key takeaways from the beginning. At the current role, I'm hearing, make sure that you understand what any severance package, any benefits that you're leaving behind or getting to bring with you. Make sure you understand that. As far as finding a new role, try to be as organized as you can, potentially set schedules for yourself, or set goals at least. I want to make it certain amount of connections a day. I want to apply for a certain amount of jobs a day, follow up on certain amount of things per day. And then also, step back and make sure you understand your situation, make sure you understand what you're applying for and that kind of thing. What did I miss?
No, Perfect recap. Thank you. That helps. There was one thing too, I realized which did help me stay organized. I made a separate job job searching email, and I'm still
really?
I find you'll never be able to turn off the alerts. By the way, once it's out there, it's there.
So it's like a burner phone. You have a burner email account
that
for
is
jobs.
super smart.
Yep,
okay.
exactly. So
Man,
I
you got some good notes here.
Yeah.
I set it up on like Glassdoor, like all of them really, just even and set up saved job searches too. That's something that, I've learned from being a recruiter. Like I'll set up saved searches for candidates for as soon as you guys go, it's open to work. I get alerts, and so I would do the same thing for me with jobs, like give me an alert. And so that second job email, it helped me stay organized.
That's very interesting. I would have never thought of that, to be honest with you. I never would have thought of that. I like it though.
Cool.
Yeah, for sure. So if people want to learn more about what you do, Brittany, or potentially reach out to you directly, how can people find you? How can people learn more about yourself and LaSalle?
Yeah. So I'm on LinkedIn, Brittany Mussett on LinkedIn. And I also am on Twitter at TechRecBrit, and on my email, bmussett@lasallenetwork.com.
Nice.
Awesome. Thank you. Any last minute advice for anybody that may be going through this now or in the future?
It does suck. We've said that a couple times, but reach out to people, use your resources that are given, and just, do what you can. Try to find people at the companies that you're targeting and have a targeted approach is what helped me, I think.
Awesome. Dan, you got any last minute thoughts?
No, I think I do. Definitely, if you're looking in the market, create a job hunting Asana Kanban board. We'll have an Art of Network Engineering template that Tim will create for $5.99.
Yeah, there we go.
We're onto something here.
Hey, nah.
It's been great though.
Yeah, it's good seeing you, Brittany. It's been a minute since I've seen you. I took a kind of an absence on the show here, leave, if you will. Had a little girl and whatnot, but I'm starting to come. Thank you, but it's good seeing you again.
Yeah, y'all too, and thank you for having me again. Always happy. I'm trying to do more again on Twitter and stuff, so hopefully I'll be active and maybe we can chat about another topic again.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, thanks for bringing that up, Dan. We did not lay Dan off. He took a short leave of absence.
Wait, I didn't get a severance package.
Yeah. Well, AJ's always throwing zeros around, man. You know that.
Yeah. Just with no other
right
value.
Side of the decimal point. Yeah. So, Brittany, thank you very much. So this is the third time you've been on. There's been a lot of good pieces of advice each time in different facets. Like you said, we'll have to do this again. We'll have to find another topic for you to come on and educate us. I know I learned a lot of things. I think this is going to be really beneficial for a lot of our listeners, maybe that haven't had to go through this in the past, and something may hit in the future, because as we all know, life happens and it does suck. And I like your mentality about it, that you always seemed to be grounded throughout the process and saying that, hey, I know other people have been through this. I'm going to get through this too. This is going to be okay. And clearly it's going well. So great advice. Thank you all for listening. You can find us on Twitter and other social media platforms at Art of Net Eng, on our website, artofnetworkengineering.com. Also check out www.cables2clouds.com and on the socials at Cables2Clouds. This has been another episode of The Art of Network Engineering. Thanks for listening.
Goodbye now.
Hey everyone, this is AJ. If you like what you heard today, then make sure you subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcatcher. Smash that bell icon to get notified of all of our future episodes. Also, follow us on Twitter and Instagram. We are at Art of Net Eng. That's Art of NETENG. You can also find us on the web at artofnetworkengineering.com, where we post all of our show notes. You can read blog articles from the co-hosts and guests, and also a lot more news and info from the networking world. Thanks for listening.